Dragon Emperor Sun Chapter 211 to Chapter 220. It turns out that Uncle Wu Vai is also there? Let me guess what the uncle is here. Liao Fei was not angry, but with a sneer on his face. I guess you must have come to treat the little junior sister. I heard that you got a piece of Yu Ruyi caused by Wen Yu. You must have used that thing to treat the younger sister, but I tell you, the younger sister is the body of ice crystals. Your broken things are useless at all, maybe it will shatter. As soon as Liao Fei's words landed, Daoist Master Wu Vai and Daoist Wu Vai were all stunned, their eyes were full of disbelief, they couldn't think of how Liao Fei knew this. What nonsense are you talking about? What ice crystal body? It's just nonsense, now you give it to me and get out. The Wiskan Daoist Wu Vai's hand instantly waved towards Liao Fei. Just now David said about the body of ice crystals, and now Liao Fei also said about the body of ice crystals. If this is true, where is the old face of Daoist Wu Vai, so he wants to drive this Liao Fei away. Liao Fei sneered and grabbed Daoist Wu Vai's whisk. Senior Wu Vai, you are old, don't fight and kill, be careful to dodge to the waist, in that case, wouldn't my handsome little sister suffer? Beast, I killed you. Daoist Wu Vai was furious, and after throwing away his whisk, he kicked Liao Fei. Daoist Wu Vai did marry a wife who was much younger than him, and she was also very beautiful. Now that Liao Fei, as a junior, actually made a rude remark, how could Daoist Wu Vai bear it? Facing the attack of Daoist Wu Vai, Liao Fei sneered and kicked out the same way. Bang! Daoist Wu Vai was kicked out and smashed to the ground. Brother! Daoist Master Wu Vai panicked, and hurriedly ran over to help Daoist Wu Vai up. Taoist Wu Vai's eyes were full of horror. He didn't expect that Liao Fei's strength had become so strong after only 2 short years of absence. David looked at Liao Fei, his eyes narrowed slightly, the moment he just made a move, he felt the fluctuation of the spiritual energy. Could it be that this guy is also a cultivator? David's heart is full of doubts, because in his cognition, apart from the Irvin, he has not met anyone who can control the spiritual energy. Those who can control the spiritual energy are all immortal cultivators. Senior Wu Vai, you are already old. As the saying goes, the back waves of the Yangtze River push the front waves. You should accept your fate. I'm just here to help the younger sister to heal. Why are you forcing me? Liao Fei said lightly. Liao Fei, how did you suddenly increase your strength so much? Daoist Wu Vai is very strange, what chance did Liao Fei have to increase his strength so quickly? Ha ha ha, this is my secret, I can't tell you, but my master is now worshipping the fierce underworld sect, and I will be the next lord of the fierce underworld sect. Liao Fei laughed, his face full of pride. Beasts! Daoist Wu Vai's face was full of anger, you betrayed the master's sect, even if you still worship under the demon sect, it's a shame, I must clear the door today. Daoist Wu Vai said that he was about to attack Liao Fei again. Senior brother! The Daoist master was not false and stopped him. Obviously, they were not Liao Fei's opponents. Do it, you can't beat me at all, why do you want to bully yourself? I said that I will treat my little sister, why don't you believe it? Liao Fei's face was a little impatient. Liao Fei, I don't believe that you are only treating Xiaoru's illness, can you tell me your conditions? Asked the truthful Daoist. Uncle is not false, I follow Xiaoru's childhood sweetheart, I just want to cure Xiaoru, and then let her marry me, is this not too much? Liao Fei smiled slightly, and glanced at Xiaoru on the bed with fiery eyes. Dreaming, even if my daughter will never marry, she will never marry you, so stop dreaming. The truth is, the Taoist said through gritted teeth. Uncle is not false, if I don't save Xiaoru, Xiaoru will not survive for 3 days. Do you want to watch your daughter die? Liao Fei wasn't angry either, his face full of self-confidence. This Mr. Chen also saw that Xiaoru is a body of ice crystals. Do you think that only you know? As the saying goes, there are people outside the sky, and there are people outside the world. Don't think too much of yourself. After finishing speaking, the Taoist priest looked at David and said respectfully, Mr. Chen, if you say you can treat the little girl, then you will be troubled, we will go out now. It's true that the Taoist priest had some doubts about David just now, but after Liao Fei came, he said the same thing as David, so he trusted David a little more. He would rather trust David than Liao Fei, a traitor has no credibility at all. Liao Fei looked at David and frowned. He never imagined that there are still people in this world who know the body of ice crystals. To know what he said, he did not know it himself, but his grandfather, the former master of Xie Mingguan, Daoist Zihui told him that Liao Fei's master left Limiguan and worshipped Daoists yet again. This Daoist extinction is very powerful and holds a 7-star morning sword, no one dares to provoke it, otherwise this Liao Fei will forcefully break into the Thunder View, and it is true that the Daoist can just spare him. Not only can I cure the disease, but I can also give your daughter a big chance, so let's go out for now. David nodded slightly. Liao Fei, do you see that Mr. Chen can treat Xiaoru as well? You should give up and leave quickly, or don't blame me for being rude. True Daoist said to Liao Fei. Nonsense. Liao Fei's face changed, this body of ice crystals absorbs a lot of cold energy, and even Wu Vai Lao Dao Yu Ruyi can't do anything, what can this kid do? Liao Fei was in a hurry, and he stopped pretending to call Wu Vai Daoist an old Daoist. If I can't do anything, what can you do? David asked Liao Fei. Of course I can. I have the 7-star plate that my master gave me. Not to mention the little cold air, even the brilliance of the sun and the moon can still be inhaled. Liao Fei said, and took out something similar to a compass, but only the size of a palm, with a 7-star shape on it, and nothing else special. However, when Liao Fei took out the 7-star plate, David's eyes suddenly lit up with scorching heat, just like an old pervert seeing a beautiful big girl. At this time, in the 7-star disc, a large amount of spiritual energy was faintly emerging, and the fluctuation of spiritual energy that David felt just now was not in Liao Fei's body, but in the 7-star disc. This is a treasure that you must get. David has secretly made up his mind that he must get the 7-star plate, and the big deal is to kill this Liao Fei. Humph, it's just a broken compass, and my Yuyi won't work. With what you have in your hand, how can you absorb the cold aura from Xiaoru's body? Daoist Wu Vai snorted coldly. In his opinion, this is just an ordinary compass, just a little smaller. Ignorance, thanks to your age, if you don't get to see it, you don't know the power of the 7-star pan. Liao Fei said, and suddenly shone the 7-star disc towards Xiaoru. The 7-star plate instantly emitted a dazzling strong light, and then the chilly energy in Xiaoru's body quickly drained from Xiaoru's body, and all of it was sucked into the 7-star plate. Xiao Ru, who was originally pale and had frosted hair, turned ruddy now, and slowly opened her eyes. Little Ru. Seeing that his daughter was awake, he immediately rushed over excitedly. Dad! Xiaoru glanced at the room with bewildered eyes. Seeing many people around her, she seemed a little timid. Xiaoru, you really want to scare Dad to death, do you know that you have been in a coma for several days? It is true that the elders burst into tears. It is said that cultivating immortals enters the Dao and cuts off the 7 emotions and 6 desires, but how many people can do it? Uncle True, do you believe me now? Liao Fei sneered, but let me tell you, I just woke Xiaoru up temporarily, if I don't take treatment, Xiaoru will still be the same as before. Let me tell you, I am the only one in this world that can cure Xiaoru's ice crystal body. Everyone else is a liar. If Uncle Su wants to understand, then drive these liars out. Who do you call a liar? I think you are like a liar, holding a broken bronze mirror. What a bull, if you have the ability to throw that thing, let's test it. Sonia couldn't get used to Liao Fei for a long time, she stood up and said fiercely. Liao Fei looked at Sonia, who stood up, his eyes flashed, and he was not angry, but looked at Sonia with a sullen look. Other people can get out, but this young lady can stay. Such a strong temper, it really makes me people love it. Bah, trash! Sonia pouted fiercely. Liao Fei was stunned for a moment, wiped the spit on his face, and immediately became angry. Little girl, believe it or not, I will accept you now. Seeing Liao Fei's ruthlessness, Sonia couldn't help but take a step back, while David stood in front of Sonia with a vigorous step. Don't you just rely on a 7-star plate? If you don't have a 7-star plate, what's the difference between you and the trash? David looked at Liao Fei with disdain, and sneered, this 7-star plate is a treasure, but it is wasted on a person like you. If you use the 7-star plate to practice, you will get twice the result with half the effort, but unfortunately you can't use this waste. Liao Fei was stunned for a moment, and the whole person was instantly furious, because David was right, he was able to defeat Wu Vi Daoist, and he was able to cure Xiaoru, all because of the 7-star disc. If there is no 7-star disc, he is nothing. Boy, you are jealous. You are jealous of a treasure like my 7-star plate. If you have the ability, you can also take out the treasure. If you don't have the treasure, how do you absorb the cold aura from Xiaoru? Liao Fei said provocatively. I am the greatest treasure myself, why do I need to use other things? What so-called treasures can only be used by waste? David smiled coldly. Liao Fei's face became more and more gloomy, and the Daoist Wu Vi's face was not good looking at this time. David's words just now were like scolding him. After all, he just used Yu Ruyi to treat Xiaoru. You mean to inhale the cold air from Xiaoru's body directly into your own body? Liao Fei asked. Not bad. David nodded lightly. Ha ha ha, it's just a joke. Xiaoru is a body of ice crystals, so she can resist this cold air for many years. If you are an ordinary person, you can't survive a day. You dare to say that you use your body to absorb the cold air? If you really have that ability, I will let you handle it. But if you can't absorb the cold air with your body, then don't mind me being rude, kneel down and apologize to me, and the little girl behind you will have a good time with me. Liao Fei's eyes were full of evil eyes, and Sonia was covered in goosebumps. Are you looking for death? David's eyes narrowed, and killing intent burst out from his body instantly. Although he and Sonia have not established a relationship, they all know what each other thinks. David has already regarded Sonia as his girlfriend, how could he watch his girlfriend be bullied by others? What? You dare not! Liao Fei looked at David contemptuously and smiled coldly. What do I dare not? Today I will let you see what is called immortal art. David said, a hand suddenly patted Xiaoru's forehead on the bed. Xiaoru was startled, and hurriedly stepped back, hiding behind the truthful Taoist in horror. Mr. Chen, so many people are here, you have to undress my daughter in public, this. It is true that the Taoist priest is a little reluctant. If you take off your clothes, your daughter's innocence will be lost. It's true that the Daoist has misunderstood. I only absorb the cold air in Ling's body, so I don't need to take off my clothes. Just now, David needs to undress for medical treatment, in order to transform Xiaoru's ice crystal quality, so that she will not suffer from the cold. If you only need to absorb the cold air, you don't need to undress. After hearing the truth, Daoist Master suddenly felt relieved. He supported his daughter and said, Xiaoru, this Mr. Chen is treating you, don't be afraid. Under the persuasion of the Taoist priest, Xiaoru calmed down and sat on the bed quietly. David put his palm lightly on Xiaoru's forehead, and in an instant, a chill was sucked directly into David's body. Although Liao Fei just used the 7-star plate to suck most of the cold air out of Xiaoru's body, but not all of it was sucked out, and some remained in Xiaoru's body, and in this thunder view, there was coldness everywhere. Qi, so Xiaoru's body will absorb the surrounding cold qi by itself. I saw David's palm slowly turning white, followed by the entire arm, like a thick layer of frost. David's eyes were slightly closed, and the condensation art was operating to the maximum, constantly refining this cold energy, but because the cold energy was too heavy, David was only able to practice the fifth layer of Qi, so even if the heart condensation art has the biggest circulation path, but it still can't completely refine this cold air. Soon, David's arm was covered with a thick layer of frost, and it continued to spread to other parts of the body. Seeing this scene, Liao Fei couldn't help sneering. Mr. Chen. Seeing David's appearance, the Taoist priest could not bear to shout. David seemed to have not heard it, still absorbing the cold aura from Xiao Ru's body. Immediately afterwards, David's hair turned white and his face was covered in frost. In the end, his whole body was almost covered with snow and ice, like a snowman. Ha ha ha, I've said it before, this chill is not something that ordinary people can bear, and it's turned into a pile of ice lumps. Seeing David like that, Liao Fei laughed proudly. Mr. Chen. David. Gu Wenchen, the others, and Sonia all exclaimed. Especially Sonia, who pounced directly at David. She wanted to use the heat of her body to melt the ice and snow for David. Sonia, no. Reuben was quick-witted and grabbed Sonia without letting her rush over. Even David couldn't stand this kind of gloomy and cold air. Didn't Sonia just die in the past? David! Sonia shouted, her eyes moistened instantly. Although she and David didn't know each other for a long time, they couldn't tell what kind of feelings they had, but they could sense each other in each other's hearts, and that kind of feeling couldn't be expressed at all. Sonia felt the most comfortable when she was with David, and she couldn't tell what that feeling was. Now that David was frozen, Sonia instinctively wanted to save him, but she never thought about her own safety. Ha ha ha! Little beauty, don't be sad anymore, there are so many men, why hang on one person, look at me. Isn't it 100 times stronger than this guy named David? Just make me happy now, I will protect your glory forever. Liao Fei's eyes unabashedly swept over Sonia's body. You wanna die? Seeing David like this, Lin Tianhe was also furious and slapped Liao Fei with a palm. At this time, he doesn't care whether he is Liao Fei's opponent or not. Tiny. Liao Fei snorted coldly and kicked out, directly kicking Lin Tianhe out of the room. Gu Wenchen and Reuben glared at Liao Fei, but no one dared to do anything. Ha ha ha, ha ha. Liao Fei laughed arrogantly, no one is his opponent here, he is the supreme, he is invincible. Master is not false, now the cold energy in Xiaoru's body has been sucked away by this kid, but Xiaoru's physique remains unchanged, it won't take long for her body to gather the cold energy again. Now the only one who can cure her is me, I am a pure yang body, as long as Xiaoru marry me and we reconcile yin and yang, Xiaoru will be fine. Liao Fei looked at the truthful Taoist priest and said. You can't even think about. The righteous Daoist glared at Liao Fei viciously, this shameless guy, who just finished flirting with Sonia, and now he keeps telling Xiaoru to marry him. Can't be destroyed in the hands of such a person. If you don't agree, then don't blame me for being unreasonable. After Liao Fei finished speaking, he grabbed Xiaoru. What? Xiaoru screamed in fright. His face was full of anger, and he took action to meet Liao Fei. Bang! Where is Liao Fei's opponent who is not false? The corner of his mouth that was directly hit by a palm bleeds, and he was seriously injured. Junior brother! Daoist Wu Wei exclaimed, and the whisk in his hand also swung towards Liao Fei. Seeing this, Daoist is not false, endured the severe pain, and also shot together, attacking Liao Fei. 2-1, but that Liao Fei was not afraid at all, with a sneer on his face. Xiaoru, run! The truth is, the Daoist shouted to Xiaoru, he wanted to hold Liao Fei with his own life and let his daughter escape. Dad! Xiaoru looked at the seriously injured Taoist priest, and her eyes suddenly burst into tears. Big niece, Run away! Gu Wenchen grabbed Xiao Ru and ran away. It wasn't that Gu Wenchen was afraid of death, but at this time, an ordinary person like him who had no skill, was left to die in vain. Reuben also pulled Sonia. Sonia, let's go. No, I'm going with David. Sonia yelled, she didn't want to run away alone. Bang bang! With two loud bangs, Dao Ei Wu Vai and Daoist Wu Xu were both knocked out by Liao Fei, while Liao Fei directly blocked the door of the room and looked at several people with a sneer. Don't even try to run away today, if you want to live, think about how to serve me comfortably. Seeing Liao Fei's sneer, Gu Wenchen and Reuben retreated. At this moment, no one noticed that David, who had become an iceman, started to have tiny cracks in the thick layer of ice on his body, and then the cracks got bigger and bigger. Click, click. The cracking sound became louder and louder, and everyone's eyes were attracted to the past. Dad, look, open, the ice is open. Seeing that the thick layer of ice on David's body actually cracked, Sonia shouted excitedly. Seeing this, Liao Fei frowned, and his expression became solemn. Whoa, whoa! Soon, the ice layer on David's body was completely shattered and scattered all over the place, while David's body was completely exposed. Call! Suddenly, David opened his eyes, and a white mist protruded heavily. Refining these cold qi has made David's strength improve by leaps and bounds. He had just stepped into the 5th level of qi training, but he has directly improved by 1 level. Now David's strength has reached the 6th level of qi training. If this is in Pine Mountain, relying on that little spiritual qi to cultivate, if you want to reach the 6th level of qi training, I don't know that it will be the year of the monkey and the horse month. David, you are not dead, you are not dead. Sonia jumped over excitedly and hugged David tightly. At this time, she couldn't care about the eyes of others, so she held David tightly like that. David's body still had a hint of chill, but even so, Sonia didn't let go. Let go, if you don't let go, I will really be strangled by you. David coughed twice and said. When Sonia heard this, she was so frightened that she hurriedly let go of her hand, but seeing that David was okay, he was looking at herself with a smirk, Sonia rolled his eyes at him, and then kicked him fiercely. Seeing that David didn't die, everyone showed excitement, so that Liao Fei couldn't mess around. Boy, who are you? You actually absorbed the cold energy and didn't die? Liao Fei asked with a look of doubt. I'm your uncle. David's face was furious. Liao Fei just took advantage of him to refine the cold energy, and he attacked Lin Tianhu and made unkind words to Sonia. David heard it, but he couldn't move. Are you courting death? Liao Fei was scolded, and his face suddenly became very ugly. Give me the 7-star plate now, maybe I can make your death a little more happy. David beckoned to Liao Fei, he was too lazy to follow such a person's ink one. So you want my 7-star plate? Liao Fei's face changed, it was terrifyingly gloomy, and one hand was holding the 7-star plate tightly, and it seemed that he would not give it to David at all. I gave you a chance, but you weren't sure. David looked at Liao Fei indifferently, his eyes were full of killing intent. Boy, even if you don't die by absorbing the cold energy, you can't beat my 7-star plate. Stop talking big here, take the trick. Liao Fei burst out with a strong murderous intent, he dared not underestimate David too much. A person who can absorb the cold energy without dying is definitely different from ordinary people. Mr. Chen, thank you for your life-saving grace to the little girl. I can't repay it. Today I can only repay him with death. I will hold him back, and you will run away. It is true that the Taoist priest was seriously injured, but he stood up again at this time, intending to desperately block Liao Fei and let David lead people to escape. David stretched out his hand to stop the vain Daoist, and said with a faint smile, to deal with a waste that can only rely on treasures, you don't need to fight for your life. After David finished speaking, he raised his little thumb towards Liao Fei disdainfully. Boy, I killed you. Liao Fei was furious, and the murderous intent on his body became stronger and stronger, and at the same time, the 7-star plate in his hand was also faintly exuding a misty light. Seeing that the 7-star disc in Liao Fei's hand frequently showed visions, both Daoist Master and Gu Wenchen were shocked. On the other hand, David smiled disdainfully, found a chair and sat down directly. Do you have any other skills besides using your treasures? David asked indifferently. Boy, you don't have to provoke me, I won't be fooled by you, don't you die without the cold qi entering your body? Then I will let you absorb a little more cold qi, and I will see if your body can resist. When will it be? After Liao Fei finished speaking, the 7-star plate pushed forward, and a cold aura rushed out from the 7-star plate. The temperature in the room instantly dropped to freezing point, and everyone hugged their shoulders and shivered from the cold. And David was sitting on the chair, not moving at all, nor did he feel cold. The chilly air enveloped David and entered the body from David's 7 orifices. Slowly, frost began to appear on David's hair again. Ha ha ha, this time I'm going to freeze you and smash it to pieces, let's see how you're still alive. Seeing that David's hair started to get frosty again, Liao Fei laughed proudly. However, the frost on David's head quickly disappeared visibly to the naked eye. No matter how the cold energy entered David's body, it could not make any changes in David's body. How can it be? Liao Fei was shocked, and hurriedly released the cold energy in the 7-star plate. All these cold energy were absorbed from Xiaoru's body, and they were all released at this time, wrapping David. With a faint smile on David's face, the condensing heart technique has reached its maximum, refining the cold air that entered the body. Now that David has practiced the strength of the 6th level of Qi, the refining speed is obviously much faster. David was no longer frozen until the coldness of the entire 7-star pan disappeared, on the contrary, his strength increased a lot. This 7-star plate is really a good thing, I must get it today. Looking at the 7-star plate in Liao Fei's hand, David did not shy away from showing his greedy eyes. With the 7-star plate, David's practice will be multiplied with half the effort. A trace of panic flashed along Liao Fei's path. With so much gloomy and cold air, David has nothing to do with it. Could it be that this guy also has a strange treasure on him? Liao Fei suspects that David also has treasures on his body. Otherwise, no one dares to absorb so much cold energy by his own abilities, not even his master, the Daoist Zheng Chuan. Boy, aren't you also relying on treasures, otherwise how could you resist so much cold air? Liao Fei's eyes narrowed slightly, staring at David. He wanted to find the existence of the treasure from David's body, but after watching it for a while, he didn't know where David's treasure was hidden. Hearing what Liao Fei said, David smiled coldly, I said it before, I am a treasure myself, what skills do you have, go ahead and use it. Boy, don't think that you are invincible without the cold poison, I will let you know how powerful I am today. As Liao Fei said that, he even directly moved the 7 stars on the 7-star disc and moved the position of the 7 stars a little. Just moving 1.7 stars, Liao Fei's forehead was sweating profusely, as if he was about to collapse. There was a sharp whistling sound, and soon black mist flew out from the 7-star disc, like a thundercloud rolling, rushing towards David. Looking at the scene in front of them, Reuben and Sonia were both frightened and stupid, but Gu Wenchen and Lin Tianhe were better. After all, they had seen the resentful dragon on the dragon chair in Gu Wenchen courtyard. I have seen it, and the faces of the two people have become ugly at this time. Yin, this is a ghost, Mr. Chen, be careful. True to his roar, he immediately pinched his fingers, chanting words in his mouth. Daoist Wu Wei immediately put a hand on Dao Kang's shoulders. Now Dao-san is seriously injured, and his strength is not enough to drive away these wronged souls, so he wants to help Dao vs. But no matter how the virtuous priest recites the exorcism spell, those ghosts don't seem to be afraid at all. Soon, a cloud of black mist filled the entire room, crying, screaming, and roaring sounds everywhere, which sounded very scary. At this time, the black mist quickly condensed into monsters with fangs and claws, and rushed towards David. "Little Yin soul, how can you hurt me?" The corner of David's mouth raised slightly, and a contemptuous smile appeared. Now that he has reached the 6th level of Qi training, he is a veritable immortal cultivator, so how can he be afraid of the little ghost? I saw David's finger flicked, and several golden lights flashed, all of which hit the black fog, instantly causing the black fog to dissipate. When Liao Fei saw this, he suddenly bit his middle finger, and a drop of blood dripped into the 7-star disc. In an instant, the 7-star disc was churning, and the black mist that was constantly emerging began to have a faint blood-red color. "It seems that I won't show you a hand. You don't know what the light of Firefly is, but you dare to compete with Hao Yu for glory." Facing the reddish-black mist, David suddenly stretched out his palms. In his palms, a golden light slowly appeared. Then the light became brighter and brighter, and finally it seemed like a dazzling sun. The Dao is the right way, the technique of Tianyan, the light of killing evil. "Pay me!" With an angry shout, the group of rays of light instantly released infinite pressure, like the radiant sun. The golden rays of light shot directly into the black fog. Like a mouse meeting a cat, like Bai Shui meeting the sun, under the light, the black mist was instantly engulfed, and then all was sucked into the body by David. You must know that these are all helpful for David's cultivation. The heart condensation art can devour everything and refine everything. This is the strength of the condensing heart art. The light disappeared, and everything returned to calm. The room fell into a dead silence, and everyone stared at David. Especially the Daoist Wu Vai, his face was blushing at this time, remembering his disdain for David at the beginning, he felt hot and embarrassed on his face. Liao Fei held the 7-star plate and stared at David with wide eyes. What kind of magic is this? Could it be that it is not a fairy art? An icy, biting chill instantly penetrated Liao Fei's body, causing him to tremble involuntarily. At this time, Liao Fei no longer had the arrogance and domineering on his face at the beginning, and all that was left was fear. Such an immortal art, I am afraid that his ancestors can't use it. The hair on Liao Fei's whole body exploded, and there was only one thought in his mind, that is to escape. How far to escape? But with Liao Fei's thoughts, David sneered and said, "Do you want to escape? It's just that you don't have a chance to escape. Give me the 7-star plate, and I can make your death a little easier." Liao Fei's eyes kept rolling around, as if he was thinking of some countermeasures, and looked at the 7-star plate in his hand from time to time. He was struggling in his heart, making a decision. You only have 10 seconds to think about it. 10. 9. 8. Seeing David with an indifferent face and counting, Liao Fei's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He couldn't beat it, but he was a little reluctant to hand over the 7-star plate, and when he handed over the 7-star plate, David wouldn't let him go, just let him die a little more happily. Liao Fei doesn't want to die yet, he has finally acquired this skill, and he hasn't pretended enough. 1. David faintly spit out a word. 7-star plate for you. Liao Fei did not dare to hesitate any longer, and threw the 7-star plate towards David. David jumped up and directly caught the 7-star plate. Liao Fei took advantage of David's leap to his feet, turned around and ran out of the door. The speed was extremely fast. "Mr. Chen," Liao Fei ran away. Seeing Liao Fei running away, the Daoist master hurriedly shouted, "Run!" The corner of David's mouth raised, and the whole person instantly rushed out like a loaded cannonball. It only took a few seconds for David to come back from the outside, and in his hand, Liao Fei who fled. At this time, the mighty Liao Fei was like a dead dog. David grabbed his neck and brought him back. Seeing David capture Liao Fei so easily, everyone was shocked. Pat! David threw Liao Fei to the ground and looked at him indifferently. The aura of despising everything on his body made everyone in the room have the illusion of kneeling and worshipping. Liao Fei gasped heavily, and looked at David with a look in his eyes full of prayer. Great Master, spare my life, I have already given you the 7-star disc, I hope Master will spare my life. Forgive you. David sneered and pulled Sonia, who was still in shock, and said, when you molested my wife, did you ever think about such an end? My wife is my anti-scale, so you must die today. Sonia looked at David, one hand was pulled by David, the other hand covered her red lips, her chest was heaving and she was very excited. Although she never promised to marry David, she is not David's wife at all, but when David said those words just now, Sonia became restless. David at this moment, in Sonia's eyes, is that tall and handsome Prince Charming. If David proposed to her at this time, she would agree without hesitation. No. I can't die, you can't kill me, my master is the deist extinction, if you kill me, he will avenge me. Liao Fei's face was full of panic, and his body was wet, and he was scared to pee. I'm just waiting. David smiled indifferently, and then stepped down. Puff! Liao Fei's head exploded like a ripe watermelon. What? Sonia was startled and plunged directly into David's arms. Looking at the scene in front of him, Reuben had mixed feelings in his heart, while Lin Tianhu and Gu Wenchen both thought of Reuben and cast envious eyes. According to his status, there is still a gap between Reuben and Gu Wenchen and Lin Tianhu, even though he is the richest man in Horrendal, but in this age of martial arts, a simple business family does not have a high status. Unless there are warriors in the family, or the existence of ancient warriors, the status of the family can be improved. Now that Reuben has a son-in-law like David all of a sudden, then the status of their Su family need not be said much. Even Gu Wenchen and Lin Tianhu will be polite when they meet Reuben in the future. Mr. Su, congratulations. Gu Wenchen followed Reuben in a low voice and said congratulations. Reuben smiled humbly, the ancients said it too early, but now the young people can't tell. Since Mr. Su knows that he can't be sure, let's match it up as soon as possible, so as not to have too many dreams at night. Gu Wenchen smiled at Reuben. Reuben immediately understood what Gu Wenchen meant. The Taoist priest was right to find someone to clean up the room, and only after cleaning did Sonia leave David's arms. Did you deliberately take advantage of me? Sonia questioned David. Who took advantage of you? Obviously you plunged into my arms yourself. David said with a confused expression. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is, who told you just now that I'm your wife? Didn't you take advantage of me? Sonia pretended to be angry. Oh, I thought you were willing to be my wife, but it turned out to be my wishful thinking, so I won't talk about it from now on. David said calmly. After speaking, David turned around and walked outside the house. At the moment when he turned around, the corners of David's mouth raised and he smiled secretly. Sonia was stunned for a moment. She was a little silly. She was just joking with David. Why didn't David see it? Reuben was also a little stupid at this time. He stepped forward and twisted Sonia. What are you talking about? If it weren't for David, we would all be dead. You see, David is sad, so hurry up and persuade him. Advise. Sonia couldn't hold back her face, but she finally clenched her teeth and ran out. Ancient, Mr. Chen wants a spirit pen and cinnabar, I'll go get it now. After saying that, the Taoist priest turned around and walked to the room beside him. He quickly brought the spirit pen and cinnabar and handed them over to Gu Wenchen. Old, please also ask me, although the cold energy of the little girl has been completely absorbed, but what Mr. Chen said about the body of ice crystals will automatically absorb the cold energy, so it won't take long, little girl. Wouldn't he have to suffer from the cold again? True to his word, he said to Gu Wenchen with a face full of prayer. Okay, I'll go ask Mr. Chen now. Gu Wenchen took the spirit pen and cinnabar, nodded and said. But just when Gu Wenchen was about to go out and ask David, Sonia's roar suddenly came from outside, "Damn David, you dare to lie to me, I will kill you." I saw David running into the room with a smile on his face. Sonia was chasing after him, but was stopped by Reuben. "Where is this? Don't fool around." Reuben gave Sonia a lesson, and then looked at Gu Wenchen, Daoist true master and the others with embarrassed smiles. Several people also smiled, with envy in their eyes. "Mr. Chen, although the yin and cold aura from Daoist's daughter's body has been absorbed quickly, you also said that she is an ice crystal body and will continue to absorb the yin and cold aura, which is probably not useful. How long does it take for her body to be invaded by the cold air again, so?" Before Gu Wenchen finished speaking with David, David interrupted with a wave of his hand. "It's true, your daughter will be fine for the time being. His ice crystal body is a rare physique that can't be seen in 100 years. With my current strength, I can help her get rid of the cold air completely, but I hope more she can go all the way to cultivation, so when my strength improves, I will naturally transform her physique. For now, Ling Nu will not have any effect, I will come regularly to help Ling girl absorb the cold from her body," David said to the truthful Taoist priest. David's current strength can help the worthy daughter get rid of the cold air and keep her face forever, but in that case, the physique of this ice crystal body can't be cultivated, and it's wasted in vain. Therefore, David plans to wait for his strength to improve, and help the worthy daughter of the Taoist priest to step into the practice, but David also has a little selfishness of his own, that is, this coldness is of great help to David's cultivation, and he is just right. With the help of absorbing the cold air from Dao Chang's daughter, he can help himself cultivate and improve his strength. "Thank you, Mr. Chen, thank you, Mr. Chen." It is true that the Taoist priest said that he wanted to kneel down to David. David put his hands together, "You don't have to be so polite. I'm also here for the spirit pen and cinnabar, so we are just an exchange." Mr. Chen's life-saving kindness to the little girl can't be compared with cinnabar and cinnabar. In the future, if Mr. Chen is useful to me, it is the duty of a poor man, the truthful Daoist said with a respectful look on his face. "Mr. Chen, just now I was blind and offended Mr. Chen, and I hope Mr. Chen Hai Han." At this time, Daoist Wu Vai came over and followed David to apologize with an embarrassed look on his face. The strength shown by David has long been admired by him. The two Daoists are very polite. Since the matter has been resolved, then I will not bother. David has the spirit pen and cinnabar, and can't wait to go back and help his mother heal her eyes. When we came down from Liming Mountain, it was already dark, and Tang Long was still guarding at the foot of the mountain. Sonia volunteered to drive David back to Pine Bay, while Gu Wenchen and the others could only squeeze into one car. "You're a girl's house. If you don't come home at night, why do you have to send me home?" David sat in the co-pilot and asked Sonia. "I'm your wife, I won't send you, who will send you?" Without others around, Sonia no longer has any scruples. David was at a loss for words. After a pause, he said, "We are not engaged, we are not married, how can you become my wife? Besides, I don't have the money to marry you now." "You don't have money, but I have it. I'll support you in the future. Anyway, I recognize you." Sonia looked at David, raised her brows slightly, and said with a bit of provocation. Looking at Sonia's appearance, David laughed. For Sonia, David's heart has long been tempted. Whether it is appearance, figure, or life experience, including personality, it is the kind that David likes. It's just that David has not yet decided to follow Sonia together. Since he stepped into the path of immortality, David's mood has changed. Perhaps with the enhancement of strength, David's age can be extended infinitely, and Sonia, she is just an ordinary girl.